Okay, that's looking a little better, I think. It's backwards. All right, that's fine. Oh, the camera's flipping. Okay. Forgive me, everybody. This has been an experience. Okay. All right. That might be working. Okay. I'm just going to assume it is. I am on the hotline right now, too. So if I have to run out of here, I will do that. So my phone is on. And if if something comes in, I got to go. All right. Pick up where I left off, which was not even starting. I did gather a lot of comments. I'll go through some of them. All right. Yeah, this camera's actually there. It was working. The problem was it kept, it was showing it as like, the other it was flipped. So this is better now, but wow, it was weird. So I'll figure that out later. YouTube is kind of tricky. It doesn't really give you a lot of preview time. You get to just kind of jump into it. Okay, so this is basically what I do every day. I think I've shown this before, but I just pick an enclosure and work with it and see. Hang on. There we go. There's obviously a lot of maintenance for this kind of thing, but not as much as you'd think if you stay on top of it. Maybe this guy. This is Arizona black rattlesnake. He's going to shed his skin soon. So. He's not having it. I mean, cleaning snake poop is not exciting, but it is reality. It's a big part of this. Gonna hear some noises. Hang on. This usually doesn't look exciting. It shouldn't be exciting. I know probably of the channels that you're going to see of people working with venomous snakes, this is going to be the most boring, which is probably the way it should be. I mean, if you're working in here just doing normal maintenance and it's exciting, something's gone wrong, and a lot of people play with their venomous snakes, which is not good. Pretty much just use double hooks. We don't need to tail anything. We don't need to touch anything. We don't need to put our hands on any snakes or even near them. Makes it very easy that way. All right, let me grab a comment and see if I can answer one of these things real fast. Now, the big question is if these comments are going to be... Okay, good. I can actually see it. In my preview, it's flipped, so I just have to read it off of here. All right, these are just random comments that I took off of there that, for whatever reason, at the time that I was looking at it, thought, you know what, this would be good just to answer with words, so we can try this out. All right, let me see what this says. Okay, so I hear this kind of thing a lot, and I understand it, and I appreciate that this individual sees that we're doing something good by not killing a snake. I can't remember what this was in relation to. It's probably just us saving a snake or moving one off of a road or something like that. The trick is, though, where things kind of don't work out like you might expect, is that there's this other part where, you know, people will say if it's not venomous, then we'll keep it here. If, you know, harmless snakes can live. We only kill the venomous ones because it's going to cause an issue or cause you know, potential harm to kids or pets or anything like that. The problem is that it doesn't actually create that safety. So if you live in an area where there are rattlesnakes, you're going to have a certain number of rattlesnakes that are there that are competing for resources with other snakes. So as long as those resources exist, you're going to end up with potential for rattlesnakes on the property. Not only is it not going to reduce the chances of somebody running into a snake, it has some other effects too. So one of those is that rattlesnakes that live in an area, they are very good learners. So they will build their home range or territory based on successes and failures. So every time they have a scary encounter, they remember it. Every time that they have a hunting success or a hunting failure, they remember it. They have this great spatial intelligence that allows them to basically know where everything has occurred. So if you have resources and you're in a place where rattlesnakes can be, you're going to have rattlesnakes. So the choice is, do you have rattlesnakes that are aware of you, that know how to avoid you, that remember the time that they got moved a short distance or got scared by a hose or something? Or do you want perpetually new rattlesnakes that are coming in to take advantage of those resources? It has the other effect too, is that it stops people from thinking critically about why these snakes are there. There's a lot of fun ways I think that this could be presented in the future, but I think the you know, the biggest one is just that what's the best way to say it? Well, it stops your thinking process. Right? So let's say you have flies. You have a bunch of flies around you, and you're swatting them because you're sitting next to a trash pile. If you get rid of the trash, you're not going to have any flies around. But killing rattlesnakes as you see them is very much like if you were to swat a fly or swat a mosquito, and every time you did it, you kind of declared the problem solved. It stops people from thinking further down the road about the procedure behind it. So whenever I see somebody that says something like, you know, I've killed rattlesnakes every day for, you know, on my property. I live on a ranch. We kill 20 rattlesnakes a year. I've been doing this for 20 years. It's working great for me. If you think about that statement a little bit deeper, it is not working for you. You have to keep doing the same thing over and over. You keep having encounters. And you would think that there's be a big difference between people that kill all the rattlesnakes that they see and people that don't. Where if you kill all the ones you see, you never really run into rattlesnakes, but people that never kill them would have huge rattlesnake problems. And that's not the case either. There's really no discernible difference between those encounters, or the nature of the encounters, except one person always puts themselves in harm's way whenever that happens. So that is not. So I appreciate that sentiment. I think it's an interesting thing, but it doesn't exactly work out that way. So yeah, focus on the root of the problem. Focus on why the snakes are there to begin with, and figure out a different way to deal with the rattlesnakes that you do run into. Maybe scare them with the hose, something like that. Get some training, move them, call somebody. I mean, that's something that we do quite often, obviously. I don't know. Who wants to eat? There's a speckled rattlesnake. He wants to eat, but he doesn't get to eat because he just ate a little while ago, and he's a little girthy, we'll say. Yeah, we don't like to have the snake sausages that you might see in a. God, all you guys are on it. Smelly mice in here. But obesity will kill a snake, just like it can other animals. So we're real cautious about that. This is my prairie rattlesnake. He keeps biting the glass, so I think he wants to eat too. He has kind of a similar problem. Third one. Okay, let me try to get a different comment. There we go. This is kind of working. All right. This guy. I've seen 7 foot 9 inches. Oh, okay. So this was in response to we put up a video a little while ago on shorts about how far a rattlesnake can strike and what their capabilities are. And there were a lot of people that really had a hard time with our assessment that rattlesnakes cannot just fly through the air and spring like a coil. I mean, that's great, but that's how it is. So if we were wrong about the rattlesnake strike range, everybody on this channel would be dead a long time ago, because we have to work within what we assume the outer edge of that range is going to be. If they could jump, if we have a lot of rattlesnakes here that are 3 feet long and they could strike 6 feet, I would not be able to work in here safely. It would be a whole different thing. But it's very important for people a lot of times to believe in these things. And that's kind of an interesting thing to me, because there just seems to be this obsession and need for things to be more dangerous than they are. And I think that's what happens here, is that for some reason, exaggerating something as meaningless as rattlesnakes being bigger than they can get, doing things that rattlesnakes can't do, become these protected sources of misinformation that most of the time, I think if people were honest, they would know that they aren't being truthful about the things that see, like something like this, a very, very specific measurement of a rattlesnake that is 7 feet 9 inches. Yeah, I don't believe it. I don't believe you. I'm sorry. You'd have to provide some proof. And if anybody was watching my live yesterday, you know how prickly people get if you ask for proof. Nobody should believe anything without being able to get proof. I think that's, it's probably a wider spread problem. Think critically about things. If somebody says that they saw a 20-foot horse, don't just start talking about it on social media. Go, let's see a picture of this thing. Who was there with you? That kind of thing. So, no, there may be an instance. I can't recall what it is. The largest rattlesnake ever found, I think, was in this range of about 7 foot 10. I think it might have hit 8 foot. I don't know it because it's not really all that interesting to me. It's like if somebody were to ask you how big a person gets, how tall is a tall man? Would you say 8 feet because somebody got 8 feet one time? Would you believe that people run into 8 feet people regularly while the rest of us see normal people? There's a lot of interesting things here. Also, there's just the arbitrary, very exact numbers are usually an indicator that it's just kind of made up. So I don't know. I can't know. But the point is, just like I can't tell for sure that this isn't true, I also can't tell for sure that it would be true. So don't take offense if somebody asks you for proof. But for one person to see at the same time the largest rattlesnake ever found on the planet, or at least within a few inches of it, doing something that rattlesnakes don't really do. I mean, they can strike to where their bodies leave the ground to some degree, but it's like a straightening and a plop rather than a spring. Yeah, it's not accurate. So it's interesting to me how hot people get about that. But, it would be cool if someone brought me a almost 8 foot long rattlesnake that flew. Sweet. but I've never seen that. And I don't think that guy has either. Do all North American rattlesnakes have the same venom? They don't. So not even individuals per species. So this is why it's kind of not useful when people are talking about things like the Mojave rattlesnake. And, well, it has 2 types of venom instead of 1. It's kind of a nonsensical and really simplistic way of looking at venom. So venom is, in any rattlesnake, a very complex cocktail of toxins that do very specific things in very specific ways. And they may have variation in the way that toxin is made up. There's a lot of chemistry involved. So to say that just like all rattlesnakes have a hemotoxin except for this one, that'd be just false. All these rattlesnakes have sometimes similar venom, sometimes similar effects, but they have pretty complex venom. And there's a lot of them that have neurotoxic in there. Some of them, like the Mojave rattlesnakes, might have multiple types of neurotoxin. The midget beta rattlesnake also has this cool thing called a concolor toxin. That's pretty bad news. So yeah, every rattlesnake is going to have, species is going to have a variation in venom. And then each individual in this, by region sometimes. So Mojave rattlesnakes from Maricopa County might be very different than Mojave rattlesnakes in Mexico or in New Mexico. So complex stuff. Anytime that someone tries to overly simplify it, it ends up usually being kind of inaccurate. I'll do another one before I go. This isn't going to be the longest video, too. I think I'll just kind of do this while I'm doing cage cleaning every day. I did a little earlier, too, so there's not too much dirty stuff in here. The color of rattlesnakes is determined by its diet, and that's what gives Mojave green rattlesnake its color. Somebody said this about a video we did about Mojave rattlesnakes. It is not true in any way. Color of rattlesnakes is determined by a lot of things. It's determined by its environment. It doesn't turn into that color, but through natural selection can look similar to that color. Region, a lot of things are in play with that. But the one thing that does not change because Mojave rattlesnakes, when they're green, are not green because they ate something that was green. That was an interesting conversation that went pretty sideways. I guess I'll do one more because that was not a very satisfying comment. You're seeing this backwards, so only I can see it. Oh my gosh. Okay, so this is the learning curve I'm talking about. On my preview here, it is showing it backwards. So I think I need to figure some things out. Okay, God. Thank you for bearing with me. This will be something that we're able to deal with in the future. Yeah, so in my camera and everything, it's showing properly. In YouTube, however, it is not. It's showing it the other way. So I was sitting here trying to fix something. It apparently was working just fine for everybody except for me. So now I get to figure out how to read these. Okay, that's fine. I got it. Actually, this is better because I can leave this camera up and ignore what's going on there. Okay, cool. Better? All right. So this will be good because I only have to set this up a couple of times, and then in the future, it'll be real easy for me just to kind of pop in here and do this without having to mess with it. So I think this will probably be my preferred way to answer comments that I think might need a little bit of additional address. Let's see. The general rule for all snake strikes, this is on the same video as the one where the guy said that they get huge and fly through the air, is that snake strikes, the general rule for all snake strikes is they can jump twice the body length. That is not true. I think what may be happening there is that people are reading things and are just remembering the fraction wrong, because people might see 1/2 and are just thinking, oh, they can jump up to, I don't know why. That is a very consistent thing. People say that they will strike twice as far as their body, but again, if a 4-foot rattlesnake in here could strike 8 feet, I would be dead. I would not be standing here. So it's not true. These are always fun comments too, because they come in and to correct me while I'm actually working with the rattlesnake. I didn't mean for this to be so like negative. That's this. I think that's the thing is like I don't want to type that out when I see this. I don't want to type all that out because it just engage this person. You know, a lot of times people are not just incorrect about something, but they might like I don't have time to argue about this stuff. So, hi, thanks for subbing. It's getting busier. I think we might have hit 68,000 today. I think like we were just talking about hitting 30, so that's pretty cool. All right, we might not need a lot of stuff in here today. I might have gotten it earlier. That's fine. We'll just talk more. Oh, you're good. Part of it is because I haven't fed anybody this week, so things are actually pretty clean. That's nice. Well, how about if I just turn a light on and say cage cleaning is done? Not a whole lot of it. I'll save some next time. He's rattling down there. Okay, let's see what's next. Every snake rescue Marissa does is all no worries. Oh, so this is a fun thing. Is that there was a video a few videos ago where Marissa visited an industrial place where there was a rattlesnake that was hiding in a hole. And she used water to get out of the hole. Everything was good, but along with the snake came a big wolf spider, and people were interested about why she wouldn't worry at all about a rattlesnake, but did not prefer the spider. So I think we're all. This is something I use sometimes to explain to people that kind of helps. With this perception, because the perception we don't want to give for sure, the perception we don't want is that we are somehow brave people that are dealing with these snakes, because the point is that they're not as dangerous as people think. So if it's something that's reserved for people willing to risk their life to do, that is not accurate. That's not an actual accurate portrayal of the situation or how we want to portray it. So we just know a lot about rattlesnakes and have a lot of experience with them, so they don't scare us. They don't, we're fascinated by them. But a lot of us, we all fear other things. So it's a great way to kind of talk with people and realize like, hey, we're not like brave people dealing with these snakes. We're just people. We just aren't scared of this one thing. So I usually use roller coasters. That's my go-to. I am scared of going on roller coasters. I don't like it. I've been scared of them my whole life. There's nobody that could come on here and say, hey, let me give you some facts about roller coasters. That's going to be like, oh, okay, it's better. I'm going to go. So those are great experiences for us too, because we not only have the ability to maybe talk with people, like say, we fear a lot of stuff too. But also just when I'm thinking about it, if somebody talks to me and they're saying that they're really scared of snakes, they have a really hard time with it, I can understand it by thinking of that. I can understand like, what would it take for me to get on a roller coaster? I know it's not going to kill me. I know I'll be fine. I know that. But what information would change that? I think part of that might just be that it's not something I have to deal with. There's no consequence for me to ever have to not face that. But if you live in a place where there are rattlesnakes and you're not wanting to move, then it may be something you have to face. So there's a point to learning about it and trying to get over it. So spiders, that might be Marissa's thing. She might not prefer spiders. I don't like spiders on me. I like spiders. I don't like spiders when they are just on me. And I can tell you from a lot of time in various jungles, they do just show up on you sometimes. I don't like that experience. So yeah, it's very possible just because someone is cool with snakes. Yeah, spiders don't get a free pass a lot of times. But I like that conversation. I think understanding fear and how people react to all this is we all have them. And fear is not always rational. It's seldom rational. All right. This is a long one. Let me read that. So someone's asking, I think that the point is here, I think this was coming up because I was saying that they're easy enough to avoid, right? So she's pointing out, or he is pointing out situations that nobody would be able to avoid them. Like a child wouldn't necessarily be able to avoid it in the same way. Somebody that's working in a barn or in some situation might not be able to do it. So this is a long comment. I'm going to address it in a couple different parts. So the first thing is that, yeah, different people are going to have different abilities or mindfulness to avoid situations. That's true. I mean, it doesn't change the fact that the best way to avoid accidents is to be mindful of those potential situations and try to avoid them. So the case here that this gentleman is trying to make is that by eliminating rattlesnakes that are seen, it is reducing or eliminating the need for people to remain aware and try to avoid accidents in places where rattlesnakes can be found. That is entirely false. It can feel like that's the case. Like you kill something and go, well, that's the end of that. I don't have any more. Everybody relax. You don't have to look for snakes anymore when you're walking. That can feel like that. That is in no way accurate. So that's an emotional response to the situation rather than a logical one. And I don't think that anyone really needs to think about that too hard to see why that's not really a logical process. If there are rattlesnakes, if there's a possibility of rattlesnakes in an area, then you avoid them, and you focus on getting better at avoiding them. So why can't a child avoid a rattlesnake? I have a child. We talk about rattlesnakes. We teach her to see rattlesnakes when we see one. We show it to her. We also don't put her in situations where she might be able to have an issue with that. You try your best to eliminate the circumstances, not the threat. Or the other example here, walking into a barn and stepping on a rattlesnake. Well, we provide training for this kind of thing. Lots of people do. Nobody wants to step on a rattlesnake. I work in environments with rattlesnakes. Again, there is opportunity for somebody that is mindful, that is working in an environment with rattlesnakes, to not step on it. It requires an effort to pay attention to those things. Any environment that you might work in probably has potential dangers. That's why you practice it, and that's why you are aware of those situations. And unlike killing them with the belief that it's going to fix things, go with more productive and useful methods of safety, like being aware, teaching people to be aware, reminding people to be aware, making sure they're wearing the right type of boots, making sure that things are stored in the environment in such a way that they're going to reduce the number of rattlesnakes in that general area, that kind of thing. So, yeah, and then that's followed up with a just completely false statement that thinks that the argument that rodents eat enough, or rattlesnakes eat enough rodents in an area to be meaningful, to make an impact, he thinks that's absurd. Well, you can think that, but if you were to look into it, you'd find that it is quite the opposite. In fact, there have been, if you remove an animal like a rattlesnake entirely from an area, you get a lot of problems, not only from rodents, but from the things that rodents carry, the vectors of those. So there were attempts in the East to completely exterminate timber rattlesnakes for a very long time, just like there are, they're doing in parts of West Texas right now. The prize that they get is no reduction in the number of bites, or no reduction in the number of cattle that are killed and tracked that way. Actually, an increase in the latter. Why is that increase? Well, they're stepping according to FDA, they're stepping in holes in the ground. Who makes holes in the ground? Texas also is home to Lyme disease now, and there's other diseases that are there. So yeah, they do make an impact. They eat a lot more rodents than you might think. And if you were to remove all those animals, you're going to have some problems. Yeah, he saw a rattlesnake swallowing a rabbit. They feed. Yeah, they eat animals. I don't understand what the point is here. Okay, and then my two favorite bits of fallacy about this whole topic. One of them is whenever information stops being effective, or meaning that person doesn't want to hear the information, they've raised some claims and the facts of the matter when presented, don't back up what they said, then that's when people start name calling and acting that way. But a favorite one here that's kind of an approximate thing is that anybody that has our perspective on rattlesnakes must live in the city. We must not live in a place where rattlesnakes do. Rather than we live in areas where rattlesnakes are, we are around them all the time. Therefore, we know what we're talking about. It is only, we somehow do that with and never gain any information about rattlesnakes. So if I were to go outside right now, and I can't move this thing, I live in the middle of the desert on, an 11 acres backing up to a mountain with millions of square miles of open land there. There are lots of rattlesnakes here. So when we are talking to people about the actual nature of rattlesnakes rather than the perception of it, the common perception of it, it is because we are around rattlesnakes often. It's because we're around them all the time. I have not seen any difference between people who live in the city versus people that live in rural areas in their ability to learn and have reasonable outcomes. In fact, a paper that we co-authored with ASU last year looked at the attitudes towards wildlife in general based on different places that people live. It was really interesting how that worked out. But yeah, just because you live in the desert doesn't mean you have to be scared of snakes. Doesn't work that way. And then the other one is to the old fear thing. Google snake bite injuries and talk about just avoiding them. Yeah, snake bite injuries can be very bad. 1 or 2 people a year in the United States die from venomous snake bites. It should be avoided at all cost. These are not surprises. So this person is suggesting to, rather than learn about safe methods of avoiding rattlesnakes, you should go on Google and you should look up gore videos or gore pictures of snake bite and generate fear. It's not thinking. I mean, car accidents are very bad for people. There's a lot of bad things out there that can happen to a person. It doesn't mean that you should forego rational safety measures in those cases in exchange for emotional fear-based ones. So interesting stuff to me in comments like this, because it's clearly the threat here is not the snakes. The threat is taking this away, that rattlesnakes are something that you have to really worry about, that you have to invest a lot of time or an energy fearing and kill them when you see them. When that doesn't turn out to be true, it's protected knowledge, and that is when it gets interesting to me. Why is that important to people? God, I'm gonna have to pay attention to this, because I think I put in a lot of negative stuff. I didn't want this to be negative, but I'll pay attention to that. Sorry. I live around rattlesnakes, and it's wild how you all don't sell them or kill them. I kill everyone. I killed a 5.5-foot diamondback the other day. That sucks. Okay. I mean, why would we sell them? Why would we kill them? Again, if you want to kill them, you're just killing them, but you are not creating safety. You are not helping the situation. You're just putting yourself at risk. So that's why we don't kill them. So YouTube Shorts is an interesting format. Since we started doing shorts, we've noticed that there are the commenters on there and the audience that view shorts are very different than people that subscribe to our channel and watch our longer form videos. I think it's just the way the format is, where you have people that just kind of like suddenly you appear in front of them, and then they may never see you again unless you subscribe or watch it all the way through a few times. It's a little more like TikTok in that way. But this is a comment type that comes a lot more through shorts than it does in our longer form ones, where the idea is that if we don't kill rattlesnakes, then we are just hurting somebody else, that we are directly responsible by not taking the chance, not taking the opportunity when we see a rattlesnake to kill it, we are just hurting someone down the line. It's an absurd logical process, but enough people have it that it's something that we've given a lot of thought to. I think there's two different categories of this type of this sentiment. One is just the bad faith, the troll, something like that, that just is not knowledgeable about the world, not knowledgeable about logical thinking, and doesn't care to. They're just here to stamp their presence and move on. But then there's others that really believe that. They think that, and we've talked to homeowners that believe this too, that have stopped us when we're doing relocations, and they think that that by releasing the snake rather than killing it, it's just a matter of time before somebody gets killed by it. And that's of course not true. There's not enough. So just the numbers on this, the number of rattlesnakes that live in the Piostra Peak region, and we know about how many are there because we've been studying it for 5 years now. We've been pit tagging them. We found enough of them that a certain ratio of them are ones that read for us on our pit tag reader, which means that you can start building out the formula of how many rattlesnakes actually live here. And it is many hundred, there are a lot of rattlesnakes here. There are hundreds and hundreds of rattlesnakes in this one park. How many people are bitten by rattlesnakes while they're climbing Piostra Peak in this area with hundreds and hundreds of rattlesnakes? Almost nobody. It's something, if it happens, it is, leading the news that night. It is not a common occurrence. It might happen once a year, maybe, right? So it just isn't that. There's not a 1-to-1 ratio of rattlesnakes to people. It is also just not a very reasonable way to look at the world, to where everything that can be a threat, regardless of how big the threat may be, should be eliminated, because then it's no longer a threat. This is a fact that I have been relying on more lately because it just shows the absurdity of some of this. More children will die while choking on grapes in Arizona in any given year than rattlesnakes will kill in 20 years in Arizona. So the illogical way to view that would be that a headline of grapes are hundreds of times more deadly than rattlesnakes. If you go to a grocery store and you don't smash every grape you see, you're just directly responsible for a child in the future choking on a grape and dying. Whenever you take any of these comments and take them out of the topic of rattlesnakes and the social importance that they have with the fear and all that, it starts looking ridiculous. I mean, you can run that exercise as many ways you can. I mean, there's things that we choose as a culture and individuals that are dangerous that we choose to avoid or choose to do anyway, even though that that's because it's important in life. And there's other things that have almost no actual danger involved that we obsess over generating fear. And you can guess which side that rattlesnake's in. So appreciate the sentiment, sir, but it doesn't work out that way. Even if this is an actual thing you think, it just doesn't. It's not reality. That finding a rattlesnake out there and then not killing it is going to save a life. Yeah, that's silly. All right, I'm going to look at some comments here before we do this. I think I missed a few about Burmese pythons. Yeah, so Burmese pythons are an entirely different thing. No, I don't have an Eastern Diamondback. We have one for Rattlesnake Solutions. Jill keeps that one. All my stuff is pretty much native stuff here. The issue of Burmese pythons is entirely different. They're an invasive, incredibly destructive animal. I would not be working to save them if I lived in Florida. If I lived in Florida, my efforts with knowledge of snakes would be focused on eliminating Burmese pythons in more effective ways than is currently done, where, it's a different topic. But yeah, Burmese pythons are an entirely different thing. The only time I really end up talking about Burmese pythons is, well, not every time, but, pretty often people will equate that to rattlesnakes. Like we would probably, because it's a known thing there, how bad they are. No, I would save a rattlesnake. And if it was a Burmese python, I would, if that was what my job would be, I would kill it. So Um, let's see here. Would I agree if a rattlesnake is at least dangerous when its location is at its least dangerous when its location is known? Yeah, that's it. So if you are in an area and you see a rattlesnake and it's 10 feet over there, there is absolutely no danger to anybody unless you go over there. So really the only danger that a rattlesnake could pose is if you don't know it's there. So the effort should be taken to try and make them more discoverable, make them more detectable, open clear spaces, getting rid of clutter. That is a big part of it. So yeah, um, that's also why the idea that, when people say I had to shoot the rattlesnake, I had no other choice. Sure, you did. If you're standing on top of the rattlesnake or right next to you, that's really the only situation that the snake can actually bite you because you've discovered it there. Um, I don't, you can take a step away. That's always going to be faster. So there are not really those situations where you're sitting there and you're staring down a rattler and you got to shoot at it to save a family. It's fantasy, and that's very important to a lot of people a lot of times, but that's not really how it goes. So that is very accurate. Um, the action of staying safe around rattlesnakes and avoiding bites and avoiding negative interactions is very much about finding them. Once you see them, danger's over. There's a lot of different things you can do there, but yeah. Reading some some of the chat here. Oh, let me see. I'm not sure what the comment was, but Eastern states offering some incentive or something for timber rattlesnakes. Yeah, they used to. I mean, there might be some places that still do. There was a bounty on them. They were trying to kill them all off. Didn't work. Didn't save anybody. Didn't prevent any bites. Also, they won. They got the prize of Lyme disease and other stuff. So, yeah, it has been proven because it's been tried that having people try to intentionally um, kill all the rattlesnakes in an area doesn't make things safer, makes things worse, makes it worse for people. More people have died as a result of killing rattlesnakes in the East from Lyme disease and other situations like that than have been killed by rattlesnakes. The math doesn't work out. I understand the reasoning, but it doesn't check out. So you can ignore that. I'm not saying you. I'm saying people that believe this. It's if you intentionally ignore that, you have to ask yourself why fearing rattlesnakes is so fun, because there's something you're getting out of it that has nothing to do with safety. Yep. If you're playing Oregon Trail, rattlesnakes are not something to waste a 4-pixel bullet on. Wait for the buffalo. Don't buy supplies, only buy ammo. That's how you play Oregon Trail. Someone gets dysentery, it's not your problem. Only buy ammo. Take down the buffalo. Okay. Common misconception: little bite, little rattlesnakes being more dangerous than adults. Again, beloved misinformation. Not true. I think I've explained this a lot of times, so we'll do it here too. Is that baby rattlesnakes? The idea is that baby rattlesnakes have more potent venom and haven't yet learned how to give the right amount, so they give you it all, and that makes a really deadly situation. So, not true. Baby rattlesnakes can have slightly more toxic venom. They can have a lot more toxic venom than adults, but it doesn't matter because they give much less of it. The thing about them not knowing how to give the right amount of venom, so they just give it all, that has been looked at numerous times. It is not true at all. The toxicity changes and changes in venom amounts, venom yield for predatory bites might be for a lot of different things. They don't have as much to work with, so it's important for them to kill what they can. They don't have such a wide gamut of prey availability too. If you're if you're a 10-inch rattlesnake and you hunt mice, there's only so many rodents that you can actually eat. So yeah, they have to do more with less, and that's kind of the point. So it's not true at all. It also brings up some interesting logical reasoning, critical reasoning things that we run into where somebody will say that baby rattlesnakes are worse than adults, and they know this because their dog was bitten by a baby rattlesnake and died or had a really bad reaction. When really that's not comparing anything. It's stating the obvious that a bite from a rattlesnake can be a very serious situation. What they didn't do is have that poor dog be bitten systematically by different sizes of rattlesnakes to see what happens. Um, there's a lot of factors there, but it is not true that baby rattlesnakes have a worse bite than adults. And having a single point of reference on that is not proof that that is the case. So that is always interesting. Yeah, so it's not just the rodents that this is why you would miss rattlesnakes. It's not just that they eat rodents. Other animals eat them. Rattlesnakes are a huge source of protein for a lot of animals. Coyotes and bobcats and other snakes, all kinds of birds of prey. Tarantulas will eat them if they can get a little one. Toads will eat them. All kinds of things eat rattlesnakes. They're a very common food source in the desert. So if they were just eliminated entirely, there would be some changes. There's also evidence that to what extent is not known, but they are seed dispersers. They have seeds that, because they have such strong stomach acid to digest bone, they can germinate seeds in their gut and deposit those seeds with a nice little nitrogen-rich package, fertilizer. So they do a lot. There's a lot of interesting things that rattlesnakes do. And I think if someone really did all the math on that, compared to the 0 to 2 deaths, let's say Arizona. In Arizona, the 0 deaths per year, if you managed to kill every single rattlesnake in Arizona, the net gain on that would be negative. There would be unknown things that would happen that are not quite something you can measure now, but like the amount of disease that could pop up in those situations, who knows? But it would probably result in more deaths than if you left the rattlesnakes alone. It doesn't feel that way, but we're not dealing with feelings; we're dealing with facts here. Yeah, Michael, or Mitchell, that's a good example. If you keep seeing rattlesnakes in a certain area, it's very reasonable to avoid that area because they're there. So now it's safer. So yeah, thinking it through. All right, let's get the next one. Let's see if I actually did something that wasn't negative here. Nope, I was just apparently, because I was taking this all on different days, I was just picking on these kill comments. Part of that is because I have to get better at dealing with it. I will admit that as I talk to a lot of people every day about this topic, all day, every day, and most of the time when people are saying they kill them, it doesn't bother me. But when it just builds up, like there are days when it just seems like that's all I'm doing is talking to people that are angrily telling me they kill rattlesnakes. It can be stressful, and I don't always react in a constructive way. So just looking at how things are kind of growing here, it's a skill I need to keep developing. So I don't mind addressing them. Yeah, so this is kind of another version of the one that we talked about earlier. The idea that, I think this is an example of the good faith individuals that they don't want to kill anything. I don't think this person wants to kill a single thing. I bet they feel bad when they do. But they're doing it because of an honest belief that doing so is going to keep their kids and dogs alive. I understand that entirely. That makes a lot of sense. That feeling makes a lot of sense. What ends up being the truth, though, is that doing that is not actually, helping that situation. And I can get it feeling really strange. I mean, I've done that here. It can feel really strange to see a snake and have a kid and go, you know what? I'm just gonna let this be here. Because it's kind of an illusion that if you get rid of it, that there's no more snakes there. I mean, we just talked about that a little while ago, but what you should do, what would create safety, is to use those experiences and pay attention to where you see the snakes and address it. Use those opportunities to teach kids how to avoid them. Livestock also. Livestock are not killed by rattlesnakes nearly as much as is commonly believed. For a long time, and you can check this out. This stuff is all, and the Department of Agriculture has records on livestock loss. There's a lot of information there. Rattlesnake bite has for a very long time been kind of a mystery bucket. You find an animal and it's dead somewhere and it's bleeding somewhere. Well, it must have been a snake, or it's just dead somewhere. It must have been a snake. There's a lot of ways that animals can die, livestock, especially free range. And rattlesnakes do kill livestock, but just not anywhere near the numbers that people think. So if you have a ranch and you're on hundreds of acres, killing a rattlesnake that you see is not going to equate to safety. So yeah, it's another one of those things. The math doesn't really work out. Rattlesnakes do kill livestock, but they're more often, if one is going to die, it's horses are bitten sometimes. They're bitten on the snout. There's things you can do in those cases. So yeah, direct action doesn't actually produce safety. It can feel like it. But what would create safety is using those experiences to train, modify, understand those situations, try to sort it out. Yeah, rats. What you don't want is a lot of rats in an area. Yeah, plague. there's a lot of things that can happen. You want things that are helping you avoid having rodent-borne illnesses. And rattlesnakes are humanity's friend in a way that we will never understand on that. We only understand it or get a taste of it when we kill them off. If you know anybody in the East that has Lyme disease, rattlesnakes are their friend. Before they killed them all in that area. Yeah, it is. There's a thing called compassion fatigue that happens. When you're dealing with things that you might enjoy or like, and kind of live in this. One foot is always in the world of death in those situations. So it does get you, but eventually it just kind of turns into noise. I would say that I probably have an easier time dealing with it now with people kind of not like this individual I'm just talked about, but like the more like belligerent snake killers. It's easier for me now when it just has molded into a big layer of noise on top of the work. And mostly what I'm wanting to do is just be able to effectively deal with the noise so we can do our job. I think when things weren't as well known for us, when I was dealing with them more on like a personal level and I engaged differently, then it was harder. And you're going to see me in the comments. You'll see us sometimes. We're not always friendly to those comments too. It's not, I promise, it's not an emotional thing. We're testing stuff. If I have 1,000 people in a week that say that they would kill it and turn it into a hat band, we have an opportunity to systematically try out different techniques on those guys. So you'll see us say all kinds of things. We're trying it out. We're testing it. So yeah, it's still annoying, but it does not create anger anymore. Yeah, if you like hantavirus, kill the rattlesnake that just ate a bunch of rodents for 20 years on your property, and then get hantavirus and see how you feel then. All right, let's do another comment. Let's see. Okay. I'll let everybody read this. So that is complete nonsense. But there's people that believe it. But this comes out of California, basically. So in the Mojave Desert in California, the high desert area, Mojave rattlesnakes have an important role culturally that I don't quite understand in relation to ours, because like we have our Mojave green rattlesnakes that'll do all these crazy things, and in that region of California, Mojave green rattlesnakes have been elevated to a monster. They're the boogeyman there, and it takes a lot of different forms. So they will always chase you down. They're just, there's no surviving. You can, if you're bitten by one, you take a couple stuff. Lots of different flavors of things that come out of that region. I think that that region is kind of the like the wheelhouse of bad information about these animals. It is very important culturally. If you try to take that away from people by saying it's not true, they will fight you on it. They don't like it. And this comment right here is one of the versions of that. So I don't think this individual made this up. I believe that they heard it from somewhere. They probably heard it from somebody that they trust, a trustworthy person, someone in their family, or even the news. It happens. But it doesn't make it true in any way. So this idea that Mojave rattlesnakes are the way they are because, the Mojave rattlesnake was just a normal everyday rattlesnake. And then it was, created in a lab, or they started mating with gopher snakes or whatever that version is. That is not true in any way. So anti-venom for Mojave rattlesnakes is readily available. It's the same anti-venom as the other ones. Polyvalent anti-venom, the two that are approved by FDA, account for Mojave rattlesnakes. So yeah, they are rattlesnakes, so they should be avoided. But the idea that Mojave rattlesnakes are going to be a different experience, like on a large scale, than another rattlesnake, where the common thing there is that all these other rattlesnakes are fine, but if you see a Mojave rattlesnake, it's going to chase after you. It's hyper aggressive, and if it manages to bite you, which it's going to do just out of spite, just because it's a jerk, you're just going to die. There's nothing you can do except for drink Benadryl, whatever. It's all nonsense. Again, the interesting thing here to me is not the snake facts part of it. It is the cultural element that, why is this such an important myth in this region? Well, that was all the comments. So a couple of things I have learned here. I think an hour is probably a good length for something like this. So first, I'm not going to do cage cleaning earlier in the day. I'll save it. To kind of break this up a little would help. Also, now I know how to use my camera. If it's showing me that it's backwards in YouTube, it is not backwards. It's backwards for everybody else. Learned that. That's cool. Also, I am going to be more selective with the comments, because they were all just different versions of the same thing. So you can get kind of an indication of what I'm thinking when we're looking through. We get a lot of comments lately. And I think those are the ones that I've had something to say about. Is just kind of not the, it's not the hat band people or the taste like chicken people. We addressed that in the video. If you haven't watched the one from when we went to the outdoor expo, those are just silly. We know that people are just trying to seem interesting, but these other ones where there's maybe they believe it. It's not just that they're just kind of, belligerently spreading misinformation. It is that there are people that honestly believe that the nature, the ecology is very different than what it actually is. And that rattlesnakes, when found, if not killed, are creating a whole new threat. So I think this topic is going to keep coming up. I don't think I got anywhere near addressing it fully today to where it's something that would convince anybody. But I can say that I would encourage everybody to look into it, look up, contact your state's health department and look into how many rattlesnake bites actually happen. Look at information put up by vets. If you have ResearchGate, if if you're at college or still have a JSTOR account, look up epidemiology on rattlesnake encounters. You'll find that and also look at distribution, look at numbers and distribution of surveys. You're going to find that the situation is very different than what you imagined, and figure out for yourself if you're one of the people that commented something like this or think that. Try to find where that feeling, where it being an emotion ends and where the numbers and the reality behind it begin, and feel that out for yourself. Like, where does that start and stop, and how can you affect it? So those are the things I've learned. I'll get rid of all those comments, but I'll ask questions. I'll try to do more like questions rather than just kind of doing this. Part of that is my fault because I think as I do this longer and longer, the thing that interests me personally starts being more of things along the line of the psychology of it like this. So it's interesting to me, but if you don't watch it, that's all I'll talk about. So I'm going to do more lives. I got this set up in here so I can do it easier. I'm just going to try to make it so it's interesting stuff, and not just me sitting in front of a screen and talking. I can be able to. Eventually, I'm pretty sure I can do some things in here where I can bring some snakes up here and show them off in different ways and kind of figure out some really specific things. Yeah, alligators in Florida probably a very similar topic. If you move out of Florida and move somewhere, that person is going to come with a lot of information about alligators. Some of it might be true, but it's going to be very important to their identity. Coyotes are another one. Coyotes have huge problems. Oh man, I mean, I've seen people that are very knowledgeable about rattlesnakes and appreciate them and wildlife in general that believe every rumor about coyotes. So I'll leave you with this because you might believe. Oh, the troll from last night. He won't be joining us anymore. That's fine. People don't have to agree with me. That is totally fine. But you don't have to. There's a certain point where you got to act like an adult. So I'm fine with not having that guy anymore. So I'm gonna leave it with this because this is not anything to do with snakes. This has to do with coyotes, and this is a thing that people believe a lot. And I'll encourage you to look it up and actually see what the reality is. So don't be mad at me for saying this. I'm going to say go look it up. Go look it up from credible sources. Look at the sources. Maybe a coyote biologist rather than next door or something like that. Coyotes do not engage with dogs with the intent to lure them out and lure them back to a pack to kill them. And people may have seen that behavior, but it's misinterpretation. So I'm going to jump out of here because that is a lot of people don't like it. You might not like it, but I'm going to say let's get some practice here at feeling out something that you think is always true, maybe even something that you have yourself witnessed, and changing it, our perspective on it with new information and new information that might change the context of something that we viewed. So, okay, I'll do this again. I don't know when. It'll just when it hits like a good time to do it. But I appreciate it. Thanks for the conversation and questions, and I will start gathering comments again. Maybe every time I get 10 of them that I want to do this with, it'd be a good time. So, all right, thanks.